Welcome to Kaleido Connect's Data Governance Customer Panel Discussion. I'm Mike Wheeler, Director of Data Governance Solutions for Kaleido, and I'll be your moderator for this session. We have a great set of panelists joining us today to discuss the practice of data governance in their respective organizations. I'll allow each panelist to introduce themselves, provide a little background of their company, the status of data governance within their companies, and describe their role. Our first panelist.
So, my name is Alex Vladislavovich. I work for Navistar. My role is Data Governance Manager. And Navistar as a company produces international brand commercial military trucks. It's a major maker of Max Force diesel engines, school buses. It also produces RVs. It's one of the largest companies in the U.S. in this area and has international presence too. As far as my role, if you think in the classical sense of data governance, my role is somewhat unorthodox because my area that I focus specifically is the finance and accounting or area of data elements. And then as far as the stage of data governance within Navistar, we are fairly a large and diverse company. Finance is probably the smallest area when it comes to the data governance. Typically, what we also focus on is the parts, and in our case, we have engineering and distribution organizations and different needs. In terms of maturity in that area, we are starting major implementation of TIM, but we have long ways to go. And there is also initiative in our sales organization. We're working on improving our customer management. Finance was probably at this point the most mature area that developed as part of our finance transformation initiative, where we placed a great deal of aged financial systems in newer ones, and we were presented with the opportunity to streamline the management of financial data elements. So that's the rough overview of where we are currently.
Thank you, Alex. Our next panelist.
My name is Paul Fulton. I am Data Governance Manager at VISA Europe. So VISA Europe is known for, so we process many card transactions within the European region and make sure just that, I think we say, make sure that the money flows and that the transactions when you reach point of sale, that you can have a trusted service, that you know that your card will work and that the money will be cleared and settled successfully. Increasingly, we also, I guess, VISA Europe offer value-added services around real-time scoring and fraud identification and protection. So for me, data governance really at VISA Europe has started from a BI standpoint, so from business intelligence, whereby the recognition that BI as heavy users of data required, the data governance and the control and consistency which that brought. And so, as part of implementing BI program, data governance is a major theme within that. And so I work in a BI team and look after data governance of the platform and slightly wider than that. So typically, I'd say in my role, I look after the data security, data quality management process, the reference data and master data we have, data access, and the actual data definitions. And at VISA Europe, we're fortunate in that there's effectively a data governance council, which is senior members in the cross-functional business team that I support and help them, that allows us a forum to actually identify those data definitions. And so it's the start of a journey, starting from a BI point of view, but we're starting to make some good progress in terms of embedding that within the organization.
All right, well, with our panel, if we look at data governance, which spans a great deal, touches a lot of different parts of the organization, and we look at it as the business process of defining, implementing, and enforcing data policies, what has been the single biggest barrier to data governance adoption in your organization? And how did you overcome that barrier, or how are you looking to overcome that barrier as you progress down this journey of data governance? We'll go first, Alex.
Well, in our case, I believe it's the ownership of data governance. One thing that, when it comes to data governance, it doesn't necessarily seem as a very glamorous area. So it's really not well understood by the users beyond those who are involved in it. And in terms of delivering short-term results that inevitably everybody has to focus to some extent to get recognition, it's not one of those areas that you can do really quickly and effectively at the same time. So we did struggle with the ownership. When I said that our focus is on finance rather, is we have numerous ERPs such as SAP, PeopleSoft, EBS, and so on and so forth. So bringing all that together was always a chore that was affecting our month-end and month-end close in terms of the financials. So having a central point who owned that was always a struggle, as there was not clear understanding of what the ownership really meant in that case. So after years and years of struggling with this area, it was recognized that even though mastery data and data governance are not something that our finance executives focus on, that it's certainly a sore point when it comes to the month-end close, and that additional attention to it was needed. So as that was recognized, then my role was established, and to actually facilitate this process. And then eventually there was a commitment from the rest of the organization to start taking the role of stewardship, owning certain data elements, and being compliant with certain controls and policies and procedures that we put in place, and turned out to pay dividends, as now this is actually not a topic that is being discussed during the month end.
So good tangible returns from the data governance program by removing some of the bottlenecks that went into the month-end close.
Correct. This really has streamlined that process. And again, like having accounts continuously go to so-called suspense process, and then understanding what the problem is, who is supposed to clear it, really didn't work out too well for us in the old role prior to we implemented the set of new financial systems that I referenced previously. So fortunately, the financial data is the area that lends itself well to the centralized model that we have put in place. And as I said, it works really well for us, and it's not a bottleneck anymore at the month-end close.
Great, Alex. Thank you. Now, Paul, your situation is very different. You're largely around the data warehouse and business intelligence areas within VISA Europe. So what barriers do you see from your side, and how have you been working to overcome those barriers?
Sure. So I think what I'd say is, the good thing with VISA Europe is that it's quite a data-intensive company, obviously, and so getting across the fact that we have a data asset that needs to be trusted, and that kind of trusted theme, that was something that was very much in the mindset and resonated with people. And so from that point of view, data governance fitted very neatly with that. I think there definitely are some barriers. I think from trying to position data governance as being not just a technology or something which is associated with a technical function, but actually is a business-led and is something within the business, was certainly one sort of barrier. And that's partly because increasingly business users are becoming more data savvy, but culturally data was seen as being the preserve of kind of technologists. And so actually trying to increase that data savviness of the organization, and so therefore say that data governance is something the business need to be involved with, was certainly one challenge. I think the other thing is around just understanding of what data governance is, and it's a great buzzword, but actually what does it mean? So we early on had data stewards identified, which was brilliant, but certainly for the first 6 months or so, I had sympathy with the data stewards in that they felt slightly bemused at times as to what it was they were meant to be doing. And so I think just kind of increasing the knowledge and understanding of what data governance was another challenge. And then I guess the third thing I'd pick out is the nature of data governance is very cross-functional, and organizations often aren't set up. They're set up around P&Ls or around business units. And so trying to bring that cross-functional working and, certainly when it came to business cases and trying to, say that this is a shared corporate asset that we need to look after, there's certainly logistical challenges around that. In terms of just, move on to overcoming them, I think there are a couple of things I'd pick out. One is just that actually marketing yourself and the communication side of it is a big part. So I certainly find that by be it just creating a really simple conceptual data model of what your data is that you can show on a one PowerPoint slide, or actually being able to have a story to tell that explains data governance in a very simple way, help to increase the understanding for people. And we're benefited, and everybody will say it, but having senior executive buy-in, and we have a data governance council effectively, which is chaired by a board member, and that that certainly lends an awful lot of weight when it comes to making decisions cross-functionally and defining data unambiguously that people will buy into. So I certainly find that I'd say communication, the buy-in from executives, and the third thing I might draw out is, if possible, and sometimes this is the nature where it is, but data governance not being seen within the IT organization, we certainly found there's a benefit from getting closer to the business in terms of definitions and understanding and I guess owning it really much more.
Great points, Paul. One of the things that we have seen quite a bit of over the last few years that we've been interviewing and discussing this with clients is the notion of data policies, and policies being the focal point that business can rally around to get a better understanding of that data. Paul, you mentioned removing the ambiguity around data in the organization, and we largely see that providing the right context with the business process and the data combined and the organizational scope to which it applies, all coming together within the policy, removes that ambiguity and gives the business a good common language and a focal point to focus on how data is used and why policies are important, therefore increasing the value of data. So with that being said, what are some examples of data policies within your organization, and why are they becoming important to continue to forward the agenda of the data governance program? Let's start with you, Paul.
Sure. So I think I definitely agree in terms of being policy-led rather than data-led. Is definitely the way, because policy is your vehicle for communicating it, and if you don't lay down a policy, it means that you've nothing to comply against it, at the flip side of it, really. And so what we find is that a lot of the work we did was defining policies, but in an informal way in terms of the minutes or decisions from our council. And so, for example, we had policies around in data quality, around when we park issues and when they're not material and not relevant, or around the necessity that new data items need to have data stewardship and what that means, or policies around access and how we give people access and who we speak to and how we get the data stewards to approve that. And so those, I guess, having those policies, what we find is having good policies meant that from a data governance point of view, we could drive our services off the back of that and then ultimately comply. So we, as a data governance manager, I see myself as offering three services. I offer data policy definition, the data management kind of process, or the data management service, which is actually just running those policies, and then thirdly, data compliance enforcement, which is kind of the sandwich I see of define what you want, you actually run the thing, and then you comply and check how you're doing against it.
Right, so those three components of managing the policies, implementing the policies, and then measuring to improve compliance to those policies all come to bear. Alex, have you seen the same uptake in data policy adoption within your organization and the relative importance?
Yes, I can very much relate to what Paul just said. So in our case, using the policy and to stay true to the finance track that I've been talking about really made a difference. It was a factor that was driving our timely close and data synthesization ultimately across different systems. So knowing what to expect and how to do a process request that you might have in any area of the organization certainly helps. I mean, we are very geographically spread. Our finance and accounting organization is spread across the world, so we have operations in Brazil and in Mexico and in other countries. So getting them all on the same page and understanding what do we mean by certain action is what we use policy for. So understanding that you, for example, have to map your local accounts to our global accounts, when to do it, and then how do we enforce it, how do we look at what your compliance is, and what does that really mean for our month end. Are we delaying our month end close because somebody didn't comply to it? It's very critical. So the enforcement part is really not so much about penalizing something, but explaining or identifying the need. Maybe there is a training need, maybe there is a lack of communication, or something else that could be addressed, but gives us a fact that we can act upon. So it's absolutely a very critical component of our data governance program.
It's very interesting. I've heard two different mentions of measurement so far in the discussion. Paul Fulton talked about measurement of compliance, so needing the policies to establish the rules in order to gauge compliance. And then then Alex had talked about the streamlining of the process of month-end close. So we're looking at measurement across many different variables, many different dimensions in data governance. With those points being taken, how do you measure the success of your data governance program? How are you extracting value from the program? Perhaps we'll start with you, Alex.
Sure. Well, in our case, at least when it comes to the financial data, it's truly being a public company. There are certain expectations when we have to file our financial results in terms of the time constraints. So we've been historically struggling with that, and certainly everybody wants to spend less time on procedures and more data procedures as opposed to analyzing the actual data. So it is very important for us that month-end close is done as efficiently as possible. So measuring, in essence, how many days we cut out of the close is something that's important to us. It also rings the bell with our executives. They certainly understand that concept. It's something that it's very dear to their heart, and they have vested interest to make sure that this timely compliance with the policies is something that's done on a continuous basis. So we do have their support in that extent. So having again visibility of key metrics that we establish that are relevant to data close and keeping the package and distributing that package month after month is something that we are starting to do just about now. And I would just say that different audiences require different ways of communicating the metrics that we have in place. So they have different areas of interest. Some are interested in more granular results, some in less. So we try to also have communication based on who the audience is.
So data governance isn't just the pursuit of quality for the sake of quality. You're talking about ensuring accuracy of data and streamlining business processes, making them more efficient at month end.
Exactly. That really sums it up well.
Well, again, Paul, you have a very different use case. How are you extracting value and measuring the success of your data governance program at VISA Europe?
So I think I'll be, frank in saying that it is difficult at times to, especially in the early stages of putting in data governance, to be communicating and demonstrating the value that you add, and making that clear, because a lot of the initial stages is setting up policies and figuring out what to track and what to measure. And once you've built, I guess, a series of KPIs, you can then demonstrate how things are improving. I think what I would point to, though, are in many ways the data quality aspect is the most tangible part, and within that we can say that we're highlighting often problems that people wouldn't realize in upstream systems that can be then resolved and sorted out. And so there's been a couple of good cases whereby by actually shining a magnifying glass on it and proactively looking at things, we can identify stuff which people would have missed. I think the softer side is that as more people, from our side, as more people kind of use the platform and use BI, what data governance brings is a level of trust and confidence in the data that they use, so that they know that people are looking after it, that it's kept fresh and current, that when they use the data definitions, they know that that's the endorsed standard, and time's not spent debating my figure's better or different to your figure. And so I think in those areas we certainly, I think, have increased the adoption of the platform and increased the confidence people have in using it, and avoided the cost associated with endless debates about what certain things mean. But I would I definitely admit that it is sometimes difficult to be able to, in the same way it's hard necessarily to write business cases in this area, it's hard to always demonstrate kind of the monetary value of different things.
Maybe hard to demonstrate, but we can see by looking at your case and understanding that better accuracy of data, better ensured accuracy of data, and more confidence in that data removes the redundant tasks of multiple people having to validate information and the same piece of information over again to meet their particular usage.
Yeah, absolutely. And associated with data governance, we actually, as it happens, have Kaleido MDM, but we have an MDM solution, and what that will give us is, I guess, power in the hands of the business, which means that they don't have to go through a very long, lengthy process of trying to put a change in. They actually have the vehicle and the tools which they can do it, and they can do it themselves, and so that cuts cost, I guess, in lots of places. But certainly, there is the upside of we have the right answer first time, and we don't spend lots and lots of times cutting the data and figuring it out and trying to understand what it actually means.
I think
Go ahead, Alex.
Add just, as you mentioned, this is, very important to us too. So in finance area, if you have one set of results in your consolidation tools, another set in your business intelligence tools, and yet a third set of results in your ERP, then what system do you really trust? So having the accuracy, standardization, data integrity overall is absolutely critical to us. So, having that one source of truth, as difficult as it is, when it comes to financials really should reconcile, should match. And having that process well streamlined, taking away timing differences, taking away anything for that matter that can make different systems show different results is very, very important.
Absolutely true. We've heard in this past, through this last question here, the mention of ERP systems and enterprise data warehouses and master data management. So we're here that how technology is applied for the data management side of the house. How do you see technology playing a role in the data governance side? How about we start back with you, Alex?
Sure. Well, I would say it should be a supporter and facilitator of the data governance. In essence, right now, that is probably one of the areas where we are struggling. So understanding how to centralize all the policies, approvals, and communications related to it seems to be difficult. There is lots of collaborative technology that we use, such as SharePoint, sending emails back and forth. But right now, at least from my point of view, I don't feel that we have addressed the efficiency of managing data policies yet. So we are struggling there, and we are certainly going to start looking into how to make this process better.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think where technology can really play is in terms of reusable processes and providing some level of automation, validation, just checking to make sure all those good stuff. Also around consistency. So work policies are typically in Word documents, but having some degree of they talk about a standard dictionary or vocabulary around what the data items are, or what the systems are, or what the business processes are, means that you have a much richer, much more consistent approach to how you manage that. And then also, as we see the trend in technology to more business-facing, workflow-based tools to get away from many emails and lots of sign-offs, then I definitely see that if the process of creating a policy is a fast and easy way and it's easy to get approved, then I actually will encourage people to use that as a more living vehicle rather than creating a bunch of Word documents, putting in a file share, and people not being able to access or not remembering that they were defined.
That's a great point, both of you. A passive form of communication, having people have to come to you for information is not always an effective way to get the word out. There needs to be an active, bi-directional exchange of information that makes policies relevant and brings them to life and operationalizes them within the organization. Well, it looks like we're up, that our time is up here, so I would like to thank all of our panelists, and I look forward to continue to working with you as part of our Data Governance Solution Advisory Board. For those of you listening in on the session, we'll be fielding your questions via the interactive chat in the meeting room. Thank you once again, panelists. Thank you, everyone, for listening in.